In this first of a two-part series on workplace sexual harassment, I'll provide a general definition of sexual harassment, the legal definition for sexual harassment, and the list of the most pervasive patterns when it comes to workplace sexual harassment. Hello, good people. My name is Janice, and welcome to Dignity, the channel that illustrates how human rights impacts our daily lives. If you're new here, welcome. I invite you to check out the playlist marked Most Viewed and ask you to please consider subscribing. Let me begin by telling you what happened to me when I was right out of college. I used to take jobs as a temp, and the protocol is the agency assigns you to an office, you work the office, you get paid. But in this particular job, the office wanted to interview me. And so I arrived for the interview and I established a good rapport with the interviewer. And as we're talking, we learned that I had gone to school with his sisters. We also found that we had other things in common, but basically what was most significant is that I, like him, had gone to a parochial school because he wanted to hire somebody who had that basic foundation of a work ethic he believed that public school kids didn't experience. I understood what he meant as far as discipline is concerned. My father was also a product of the parochial school system, as well as having been a major in the Army, so I knew how to respect authority. In addition, part of my upbringing instilled in me to be a good girl. Good girls don't make waves. Good girls are nice. And so as an adult, I brought this background with me. So I get the job and I was mentored by this person who had interviewed me, became my supervisor, someone I respect, admired, and had a good working relationship with. He helped facilitate my getting the job full-time. And one day, one of his buddies from elementary school, from parochial school, came by to say hello. And he introduced me to this person and said, "This is the only woman here worth meeting," and proceeded to smack my rear end. I was floored. However, with the background from parochial school and my traditional household of obeying and respecting authority and being a good girl not to make waves, I had to figure out a way to address this. I'm sharing this story because my experience is not unique in that a lot of people experience workplace sexual harassment in order to maintain their livelihoods. The ABA section on civil rights and social justice held a webinar on workplace sexual harassment, and this video is based upon that webinar. 73% of women who said they had been sexually harassed at work also said they had never reported it. Of the men that said they were sexually harassed at work, 81% said they had never reported it. The reasons were common. They wouldn't be believed, their culture supports it, they risked retaliation, as well as being ostracized. Now, the general definition of sexual harassment goes like this. It's a discrimination against sex, unwelcome behavior that happens because of your sex. It can range from behavior, comment, touching, assault, and rape, or sex for favor of employment. One thing that's connected to sexual harassment, but in its definition, is a hostile work environment. That's considered a civil rights and equal rights issue because it's an expression of power and not sexual desire. It's used to reinforce cultural norms to keep people in their place, and it includes denigrating comments that reinforce a societal bias. Now let's look at the legal definition of sexual discrimination. The court's definition requires that it be severe or pervasive, which includes the spectrum of conduct of rape by a supervisor at work, the meaning work with sexist conduct, and a comment about appearance. A legal distinction by the court is classifying factors to creating an environment of feeling harassed as a claim, which separates sexual harassment from sexual discrimination. However, the Me Too movement is significant in that it was able to create a nexus between sexual harassment and sexual discrimination. And what's notable is that the glass ceiling, or the limited number of women in leadership positions in Hollywood, and the sex segregation that it creates was how that nexus was made. So I'm going to move on to the most pervasive patterns that take place with regard to workplace sexual harassment. Before I do that, I want to preface this by saying that although the LGBTQ plus communities do not have a lot of research with regard to workplace sexual harassment, anecdotally speaking, I acknowledge that it does exist. The most pervasive patterns concern pay and race discrimination, pay and people with disabilities, people working in isolation, like hotel housekeeping workers. Can you imagine being a housekeeper in a hotel and wondering what you'll see or experience behind door number 1306? Other isolated groups include field workers, homogeneous workplaces, and the trades, which include the construction workers and other male-dominated workforces. Vulnerable workers include young workers on their first job, immigrant workers, and intimidation, and then the service industry workers who are relying on tips and other customer service to keep their jobs, such as restaurants and retail. This third item perpetuates the culture of workplace sexual harassment with its mandatory arbitration agreements and non-disclosure clauses, which further isolate workers and helps employers keep the harassment under the rug. So the way I handled this, and I know that I was not the only one on this particular job because other women experienced it. One wound up leaving the job after becoming impregnated by her supervisor, and the woman who replaced her quit because of overtures he made to her. What I did was I told my supervisor, because it was pervasive, the comments that took place, the lewd comments too, that I don't think it's heard anymore in the workplace, but this is in the early days, back in 81 to 82. And back in those days, women didn't even wear pants to work. But anyway, I told my supervisor that this one person, he was horrible towards me with his comments, and I told him about it, and he was obligated to address it with this particular man, and when he did, so the guy never spoke to me again, not even hello, didn't even look at me, which was fine by me. And what I succeeded in doing, and this was part of my strategy, was put my supervisor on notice that he be wise to never put his hands on me again. He also knew never to make any lewd comments towards me. And although we continued to have a decent work relationship, what he did undermined my trust and my respect for him. So the next part 2, I'll discuss the barriers to combating workplace sexual harassment. In the meantime, be well and remember to live your life with dignity. Bye-bye.